Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's Just No HOA story, a homeowner association busybody calls the police on a farmer and tries to steal his farmland. The farmer then gets epic revenge. Here is what happened. The title story starts like this. I have lived in the same area my entire life and watched it change over a few decades. My grandparents were the ones who raised me and I grew up on their farm. I went to school and worked on the farm, and that was my life until I went to college. Any other life just did not seem right to me, though, and I wanted to go back and work on the farm full time. My grandparents were getting older, so it was really up to me to keep the place running. Knowing it would happen did not make it any less sad when they passed away and the ownership of the farm was fully mine. I had been doing the job for years, but the fact it was my farm felt different. More houses were being built in the area over the years and an optional HOA had formed. My grandpa taught me all about them and that he did not want to be a part of it because half the time they only existed to get money from you. They did not have the grace to give me time to grieve before even knocking on my door and telling me that I had to join the HOA. I did not know if they thought I was young and dumb or had a different opinion, but I slammed the door in their face. They must have really wanted me to join or just get me off the farm, because they started harassing me constantly. Trash would be thrown on my property and my doorbell would ring at random hours of the night and my newspapers would mysteriously vanish. On top of all of that was the constant harassment that I had to join and me telling them that I didn't because the property pre-existed the HOA, and since I was family of the previous owner, the option extended to me. They were at the times trying to make the HOA mandatory and telling me when they did that I wasn't gonna get a choice. I was not too fazed by their antics, but I was getting pretty sick of them. I was the guy in his 20s, but they were the ones acting like idiot kids while I was being the mature adult. One day my cows all got sick, and while I cannot prove that they did anything, I saw some random plastic bags around the field and I knew they must have done something. Luckily, all the cows were okay, but I told myself that if they did one more thing, I was gonna snap and retaliate. Getting belittled for being a dumb farmer and told to constantly move was one thing. Messing with living creatures was another thing. All I wanted to do was exist, and the HOA president seemed to take personal offense to that. That day came when I found my tractor being towed and the police knocking on my door. They were told that my tractor was on HOA-owned private property and they were gonna have to tow it at my expense. I was also told to leave the land because the HOA claimed that they owned it and that I was squatting. I told them that I owned the property, but they refused to deal with the matter there and instead forced me to go down to the station and handle things. It was night by the time I got back home, and despite proving that I was in the right, they still would not let me get my tractor unless somebody paid for the towing. Also, when I came back, my land was trashed and on the door somebody had spray painted the word leave. You might think my retaliation would be calling the cops and getting them arrested for all the crap they'd been doing. I had a better idea though and decided to show them what a dumb poor farmer boy was actually capable of. My grandfather was a very smart man and a long time ago had put money away in some stocks. Before he died, he sold the stocks and that money became my inheritance. It was a lot and I was rich enough that I did not really even need to be working. I loved farm work though, so I wasn't doing it for profit really. Instead, I was going to use all that money to get some revenge. This neighborhood was still developing, which meant a lot of properties didn't have owners to them yet. So then I went into town to the agency that was handling the real estate of all of the properties for sale. I sat down with her and explained that I wanted to buy pretty much all of the ones that were for sale. She did not think that I was serious, but after showing and talking about my finances, there was no reason that I couldn't technically buy all those homes. When she asked me my plan for them, I didn't want to spill the beans, so I simply said that I planned to rent them out for a profit. Which was not a total lie, because I probably would end up doing that because I don't actually need all of those homes. I even started renting them out before my move so that the HOA president would not be suspicious about all the empty houses that had publicly been listed as sold. There was an HOA meeting held every month, and once all the pieces were set, I was gonna make my move there. I knew that just walking in was gonna start a fight with the HOA president, and how right I was. I walked in and right away he stepped up to my face. HOA president, "Hey, "You are not part of the HOA. You have no business here." Me, "Actually, I am here to formally disband the HOA." I had a smug smile and no apologies for it. HOA President, "You are not on the board. You have no right to decide on anything. Now leave or I will have you forcibly removed." Me, "War, I have a right to be here. I'm a member of the HOA and all members can attend meetings." HOA President, "You and your little farm made it clear that you don't want anything to do with us. Don't play games." Me, "No games. I brought over deeds for all the properties I own. In those I am part of the HOA from buying it based on your new mandatory rules. As you can see, also from the documents, I now own over 50% of the properties in the HOA. HOA President, "That doesn't give me my job." Me, "No, it just makes me the majority owner of the neighborhood." But as any HOA member has the right to start a vote for disbanding of the HOA, I want to call one to order. And being the majority owner and putting all my votes to no, that means your little club is gone now. He was furious but couldn't do anything as other people could just watch in awe. He couldn't deny my request for a vote, and since it had to be official, it was a slow process where he already knew the outcome. He reluctantly declared the HOA was done with due to popular vote. I told him that he should make sure I was a dumb and poor farmer before trying to mess with me. That was the last of him basically, and I was able to return to my calm farm life. Sure, it was extra work owning all those properties and making sure the renters were taken care of, but in the end it was more than worth it to just see his face when he lost the little power he had to me. And by the way guys, after reading this story I was really curious about where it took place since OP did not specifically mention it, so I asked OP about it and he said he did not really want to specify because he did not want to get doxxed or something on the internet. However, he told me it took place in Asia and not in the US. Which is not surprising because I think the law for the American HOAs works a little bit different. Anyway, the next one is titled Fantastic Petty Revenge. So my ex and I split after he had an affair. He's a narcissist and I only started seeing the emotional abuse clearly as I got out of the relationship and started therapy. Well, it turns out his mother has a problem too. I started unfriending all his family on Facebook. After 2 years of not talking to any of them, I did not see the point in having them around. The latest has been his siblings. There are other reasons I still have his mother as a friend, but I don't want to go into them as it's a little too much detail. I don't need my ex or his mother coming at me for this. So once that stuff is over, I'll just remove her as a friend, but for now I need to be petty. His mother is freaking out. If I remove her, she won't see the photos I share of the kids and she wants to see what the kids do at both houses. And well, so do my parents, but they don't get that. My ex doesn't care about them and he does not do Facebook. What I noticed is ex-mother-in-law has been taking my photos and sharing them with her friends and family. She has 1000 plus friends, a lot of them she doesn't even know that well. I don't want her sharing the photos, but she won't stop. So here is my petty revenge. She doesn't get to see a lot of my posts. I put her on one of those all friends accept thing. The only photos she gets to see are those that have me in them. She can see the kids, but she gets to see my face too, and she doesn't like sharing those ones. She hasn't said anything yet, but I'm sure she is seething. She's the only family member left on his side, and our mutual friends are only my parents and they won't share things with her now that I've told them what's going on. It really is petty. My friends tell me so, but it feels good. Also, she cannot exactly say that she doesn't get to see photos of the kids. Edit, all those saying I should stay in the middle, I do. All those saying I'm using the kids as pawns, that's your prerogative. I'm using their photos, not the kids. Nothing has changed about the photos I take, just the way they are shared online, and I haven't said anything to the kids about any of it. What happens when I cut her out completely for my own mental health? Am I a complete a-hole then? I'm going to have to mute the notifications somehow though. I want to respond but I need to work and I have a girls' weekend planned and I like to avoid my phone when with them. We often forget to take photos, we are so in the moment. And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know whether you think OP is the a-hole in this story or not. I'm very curious about what you have to say. The next one is titled Airplane Revenge. I was flying constantly for work at the time and had established a routine to settle in fast in my exit row. One of the last to board was a young woman, late teens/early 20s with very long straight hair. I did not really notice her until we were at altitude for a while and she started flipping her hair back over her headrest. This was a 5-hour flight. Her hair hung down onto the keyboard of my laptop. I got her attention and asked her to pull her hair back onto her side of her seat, but she refused. Why should I have to sit on my hair and get a headache? I got some tissue and moved her hair off to the side. She turned around and told me to stop touching her hair and then promptly tossed it back over as before. I put on the call button and had a flight attendant, all of whom knew me on this route, tell her to knock it off. She crumbled, but I was able to continue without hair in my work for a while. At some point she did it again and her hair flipped right into my cup of water. No harm to her, but my beverage was ruined. So then I pulled out 2 pieces of bubblegum and started chewing. I like blowing bubbles. I'm good at it too. A little girl across the aisle had noticed the hairy diva's antics and was suddenly very interested as she watched me blow bubbles. Sure enough, a hair flip came soon and it coincided with a rather large bubble. "Your hair has gum in it!" The little girl's gleeful shriek announced the news to the annoying person in front of me. The hairy diva's hands flew to her hair and she scrambled awkwardly to the lavatory and she never came back. I was so happy to have her away for a bit that I didn't even ask where she ended up. I just hope she learned her lesson or cut her hair. And the next one is a pro-revenge story. This place I used to work was an inn/restaurant and wedding venue. I would break my back on a daily basis for them. I even got a good friend of mine a job there. Well, one pay period we were both entitled to overtime pay, more than 40 hours worked in 1 week, but we were told that they don't do overtime. I'm fortunate enough to be educated in my rights as an employee, so I questioned them how they could get away with it. I shared my knowledge of the law and was essentially shut up and told to mind my own business. Flash forward a year or so, at this point I'm feeling very taken advantage of and disrespected, so I addressed this. Instead of being professional and addressing the issue like, "Oh, you're a good employee and you feel disrespected? How do you feel disrespected and how can we fix it?" I was yelled at and pretty much called an a-hole for accusing the owners of being disrespectful. So since they ended it like a-holes, I decided to finally call the Department of Labor and report their violations. Well, wouldn't you know, they got audited. Thank God, it turns out I only got minimal overtime owed, but I'm thankful I called because there were other employees there that were owed a lot more money. And the next one is titled Funny Pro-Revenge. The actors in this story are Old Lady OL, owner of the building. She is 80+ years old and has an apartment in the same building as the pizza place. Then also Pizza Owner PO, owner of the restaurant and a good friend of OL. Then there is Super Entitled Son SES, and take note, this guy is 50+ years old and one of the 3 old lady's sons. They are all entitled and made a huge fuss, but SES was the worst. A bit of background, in my town there is a famous pizza restaurant. It's in a prime spot and always busy. I have known the PO since I was a kid and I know he makes a ton of money from the restaurant. He has told me that he makes between 2k and 10k in profits each day, but he did not own the building and have wanted to do it since he started renting. OL always refused to sell, no matter the offer, and trust me, she has received huge offers. The story: this happened over a year ago. The OL received an offer from a bank for the building. Everyone in town learned about it because the offer was for over $1 million. This is an incredibly high amount in my country. Of course, the old lady refused to sell. Here comes entitled kids. Apparently all 3 learned that their mother got this massive offer, and because she is getting old, they wanted her to sell to move her to a retirement home. Since then, they've been insisting on her selling, that it's the best she's gonna get and it would be the best for them to get that much money in their inheritance. Apparently, this pissed off the OL so much that she went behind her children's back and offered to sell the place to PO for a fraction of the bank's offer. From what PO told me, she sold him the building for about $280,000 with a clause that he is not allowed to tear it down while she lives and that she is allowed to live in her apartment until she dies. PO agreed to the terms by OL and bought the place. OL made sure to have a doctor and a lawyer check her to make sure they got all the legal stuff indicating that she was sane and what she was doing was on her own will. She was preparing for the crap storm that was coming and covering PO from the wrath of her entitled children. Boy, was she right. A week after the purchase was complete and PO became the sole owner of the building, OL's oldest son shows up to the restaurant in the middle of dinner on a busy Sunday, demanding to speak with PO. From other people's testimony, he started yelling that PO was a scammer and that he took advantage of an old lady and he was gonna be sued for all he had. When PO responded that he bought the place and that SES mother brother was the one that offered to sell the place to him, SES stormed to the OL apartment and began yelling to his mother. The other two sons were behind nearby, yelling as well that he was gonna take PO to court because he took advantage of an old lady and she was gonna say in court that all was true. He even threatened PO that he was gonna kill him for what he did, and someone called the police and they handcuffed SES. This is where it gets better. OL told SES and her other two sons that they were getting nothing out of her even on her death. She had already donated 80% of all her money to a charity, and whatever she had left when she dies was gonna go to the same charity. Sadly, I wasn't there, but I would have given anything to see SES and his brothers when she told them to suck it up. OL is still alive and well, PO is renovating the place, making it larger and nicer. Since then, SES got a restraining order to be at least 100 meters away from both PO. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, these inheritance battles are always sad because it seems like in the end, money can divide both friends and families. And in this case, even sons trying to take advantage of their old mother. What a sad, sad situation. And the next one is titled Christmas Revenge. My family does a gift exchange drawing each year for Christmas. We all reach into a bowl and pull out a name on a slip of paper. That is the person for whom we are to buy a gift for the big Christmas get-together. I honestly hate this ritual, as it is a bundle of stress to find something for someone you barely know, but we do it because the family always has. One year I drew the 60-year-old husband of my 57-year-old great aunt. I knew he and my aunt were very well off and really neither wanted nor needed anything. I knew also that the budget we had for gifts of $50 maximum was not going to get him anything within his or her taste level. Since he did a lot of driving for his work, I found him a rather nice set of tools to keep in his car trunk should he need them. He opened them during the party, seemed appreciative and thanked me. Fast forward 3 years, I saw my gift that Christmas was from my great aunt. When I opened it, I immediately recognized the tool set I had given him 3 years before. Even the tape I had put on part of a torn label was there. I paused, broke into a big smile and excitedly exclaimed that this was incredible. As when I bought her husband a set 3 years ago, I had wanted to get a set for myself as well, but the store had told me the set was discontinued and no longer available. I gushed that she must have gone to a lot of trouble to find one just like the one I gave him 3 years ago. And yes, I mentioned giving him a set 3 years ago a few times. I then made a big show of running over, hugging her and saying thank you. She and he just had odd smiles frozen on their faces. See, my great aunt has a reputation whispered behind her back of being incredibly cheap and regifting most of whatever she receives. Several relatives have suspected their gifts from her were regifts, as the packaging or box was obviously not new and even had evidence of prior wrapping. One cousin actually found my great aunt's initials engraved on a pendant from her. I, however, was the first to make a big public production out of my discovery, even though I never said I recognized it as the exact same set I had given him. My mom later took me aside and chastised me for what I did, as she felt my great aunt was visibly embarrassed and said she had left very soon after the gift exchange. I just looked at her and innocently asked what I had done wrong by thanking her for a gift. After all, I really had wanted it. And you know, Ripe Stars, this story reminds me of a TV show I really enjoy watching on YouTube called The Biggest Cheapskates. They always show these people there that are super crazy when it comes to saving money. However, it is not always people that simply don't have money. Sometimes it is supposedly rich people, at least, who even go as far as to reusing tissues and toilet paper. I suppose the TV show is fake, but it is still very entertaining nonetheless. Anyway, the next one is titled Face the Consequences for Being a Douche. I have twin nieces, and a couple of years ago I donated a kidney to one of them. As a result of the surgery, I have substantial abdominal scarring. I don't let that bother me and I don't cover it up. So my nieces came to stay, my wife and I took the day off work and we all went to the pool. We are all just chilling in the jacuzzi area. I get up and go off to the bathroom. When I came back, I noticed these young women staring at me and then they started talking loudly and laughing. I have a slight hearing impairment and I couldn't hear what they were saying, however, my nieces could. Next minute, niece number 1 starts crying. I asked her what is wrong, and it was because these women were laughing about my scars. As a transplant recipient, she has more scarring than me and she is self-conscious about it. Niece number 2 hears all this and decides to start crying as well. My wife heard too and confirmed that this is what was said, so now I have 2 upset kids to deal with. They wanna leave, so we sent them off to get changed. Meanwhile, I go and talk to one of the lifeguards and say I would like to see the center manager. He happens to be an old flatmate of mine and we work on some charity stuff together. He comes down and my wife and I explain what happened. He goes over and talks to these women. He writes a very few things down in his notebook. They all leave looking very pissed off and he comes back. He has banned them for 3 months from the facility, including the gym. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I honestly cannot understand people like this that make fun of others in public or in private. I just don't get how you can be so interested in someone else in a negative way. I mean, if they would come up to you and ask, oh, what happened to you, does this hurt or whatever, then it might still be intrusive, but at least it would not be as mean as this. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.